People don't really care what you do until they understand why you do it. Tonight, we explore the profound impact of sharing the why behind your business journey. It's not just about the product or service you offer, it's about the passion, purpose, and story that drive it forward. You don't want to miss tonight's show.
Our goal is simple: to help you achieve the dream and vision you first had when you thought about starting a business. We're here to make growing your business less complicated. There are building blocks to build a sustainable business. We promise to seek them out and address them all. The Better Your Business Show starts now.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's episode of the Better Your Business Show. I'm your host, Natalie, and my partner in crime, we have the coach for business, Miss Shanna Mavis. And tonight we are talking about people don't really care about what you do, which I think is so funny because what's one of the first questions, the second question is, so what do you do when you meet somebody, right? So I thought that was funny.
Yeah. And they don't care. I mean, and you can tell people's eyes will glaze over as you start telling them what you do. It really depends on who you're talking to and how much they want to nerd out about that. And so think about the customers, or your clients. You're doing the same thing to them. You're just steady. Here's what I do. Here's what I do. I'm going everywhere and I'm letting people know this is what I do. And they do not care. Until they need what you do. Because I can tell you, no one cares about my tax knowledge until January 1st. So it doesn't matter. I mean, I could be the most knowledgeable tax preparer in the world year round. People are not going to care. They are going to run away from me until such time as something happens in their lives. And then they're just like, hey, what can you tell me about this? I got a letter from the IRS. And then it's like, oh, now I'm fascinated with what you do. Oh, now you want to talk? No. But yeah, I was really thinking about that the same way. We ask, but not with the intention of really understanding what people do. It's just out of habit, right? I'm at a networking event and I'm supposed to ask this. What do you do? What do you do? A lot of it, even, Andy and I, I'm excited for him to come on stage with us. But when we were talking, I don't know that we really got into it at that level. I don't think it was, what do you do? I think it was really, hey, Rolf introduced us. Let's talk about this. Who are you serving? How are you doing this? Someone else had given me one of Andy's products to try out. This it'll generate a pitch for you. You're just having I think it's answering, and he'll speak about that, but it was just a few questions that I asked or answered. And then in my email, I got, an elevator pitch. So it was really cool to have met him through his work. So I didn't really have to ask that question. It was help me understand so that I can spread the word. Help me know who this is going to help, because people don't necessarily know until there's this need. They don't know that he's there or that there's something that can help them with this. So yeah, it's I'm ready to dig into this because I've done some research, even down to the superhero path. I just want you to know down a whole superhero rabbit hole. About that. Well, because I was thinking about that too, Natalie. It's just like, even superheroes, no one cares. After a while, it becomes so commonplace that, you've got this superhero living in your town and you don't care that Superman can fly or do this or that. If you don't need to be rescued from something that needs that skill set or what have you. And so it was really just digging into how little people care about the what. And it's becoming more and more that they care about, why are you doing this? Because plenty of people do the what, right? Potentially you've got plenty of people that understand financial services. Andy and I both coach business owners. Everyone does
Yeah.
something.
So two things on that. I tend to have people reach out to me a lot on the life insurance side of thing. And one of the reasons why I always talk about life insurance is because when people reach out to me about life insurance, it means one of two things. Someone passed away. They're like, hey, did we have life insurance? And someone look around because we didn't know. Or they've now become uninsurable and want to see if they can get life insurance, right? They've got cancer or something like that, right? So it's never a good thing when, on my end, when people reach out on the life insurance thing. That's one of the reasons why I talk about that so much, because usually by the time where people are reaching out, unless they're being proactive in that area and already working with a professional in that area, it's too late, unfortunately. And that's why they're reaching out. And so that's the challenge there. And then Tehran had put in there, people tend to ask what you do in order to decipher how much respect to give you. And I've heard that before. For me, I'm a curious person too, though. So I'm always curious, like, what do you do? What makes we spend a lot of time in our profession. There has to be something that's related to your personality or related to something that makes you tick, that made you get in there, right? Even if you're a cook, right? You talk to one of our sons that's a cook. Well, I know he's obviously loves food, right? So I'm gonna be able to talk to this person about food all night, right? Or if it's, business coaching, then I can talk to Shannon about coaching. So it helps me I'm curious, but I'd like to get in people's worlds that way too. So I like to know what people do. Like, how'd you get into that? Especially if they're in the business of helping people. It says so much about their heart and what they're doing to help people. So anyways, that's my spiel, but we'll bring him up because he is so impressive. You guys are going to be impressed with him. I mean, you can't lose with a NAS name like Winning. Hello. So we have Andrew Winning here, the elevator pitch coach. And tonight we are going to be talking about pitching, 20 years of experience. And his business is Improv Andy, which says a lot right there too, right? He's going to be a funny guy, a lot of fun. And I know if I'm talking elevator pitches, I want it to be fun. So Andy, thank you so much for joining us.
It's an honor to be here. So excited for this.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about you and how you got into, I know you do business coaching. You're known as the elevator pitch coach, but you do full business coaching. Tell us a little bit about how you got into that.
Tell us
the usual way. I mean, I've been dreaming about this since I was 4 years old. I wanted to be an elevator pitch coach right from that's not true at all. I'm actually a computer scientist by training, and I got laid off 2 recessions ago. And I started business. I always wanted to start a business, but I got in with a franchise system and started learning business. And it was a cold call selling business. Like I'd walk door to door retail stores and cold call sell. And I didn't mind that, but I kind of had to grab myself by the collar every morning and drag myself outside. And the franchise said, well, hey, they said, hire someone to do the cold call selling and you can network. I was like, oh, great. Networking sounds great. Good. So I hired a salesman. I joined the local chamber of commerce. I started going to network events, and it just didn't make any sense. I couldn't do it. Like cold call selling was fine. I was bringing in business, but the networking, I could not figure out. My elevator pitch wasn't working. I could not figure out how to make this thing work. But I'm an engineer. I was like, I can figure this out. And so I applied my engineering mind. I got best practices and tried them out with the clients that I got, and just kind of over time built up this thing. And what I like to say is it took me about 8 years to figure out the elevator pitch and networking. And now I can write an elevator pitch for people in an hour, and I can teach people to business network in about 3 to 6 months. And yes, as you said, sometimes that turns into more generalized business coaching. And I've worked for companies, I've owned companies, I'm a freelancer, I've done volunteer projects. Like I have a lot of kind of broad business background, but I really love working with people on that initial contact with someone. Like how do you present yourself in a way that people want to continue the conversation and want to talk to you more?
Yeah, showing up effectively too, right? We only have, I don't know what it is, 10 seconds or whatever to make that first impression. So how do we be effective in that 10 seconds?
And the first thing for that is really to be prepared, to have thought about it before. And you said earlier, like, the what do you do? And I have people all the time like, oh, I wish people would ask a better question. I'm like, yeah, so do I. And we can talk about better questions a little later on if you want. But my job isn't to change everyone else's behavior. My job is to prepare you for the questions that you're going to be asked. And one of those questions is, what do you do? And it's important to be prepared for that. It's important to have researched it and thought about it. And it's not really deep thinking. People get stuck and kind of, it's pretty straight. Like I help people with short pitches pretty quickly. And we were doing some of that before, in the pre-show, we're talking about kind of how to get the short pitch going. But that's the thing, it's being prepared for it and understanding what you're trying to do, which is start a conversation, right? The best elevator pitch just gets you the second conversation. Then you go into other skills, but the elevator pitch is really just about starting that conversation. And people come to me like, oh, nobody ran up to me and bought my program. And I'm like, well, the elevator pitch doesn't really close sales. Like that's a different skill, right? The different skill. The skill is to start the conversation.
So how long should an elevator pitch be?
That depends on what. So when I think about the elevator pitch is a set of skills to start conversations. And when everyone hears elevator pitch, they think about the 30-second elevator pitch, right? That's the one. It comes from the idea that you're in an elevator and you have 30 seconds to state your case, right? And I like to tell people, like, if you're in an elevator with someone you want to meet and you have 30 seconds, please do not trot out your rehearsed speech. Like it's a terrible way to make a contact with someone. So, and that's the thing. So people create this 30-second pitch and then they get frustrated because it's not really the answer to any networking question. And so what you're looking to do, there are two pitches. When I write the 30-second pitch for people, I actually write two additional pitches. One's the short pitch and one's the referral statement. And the short pitch is when people ask, what do you do, right? It's geared to have people then ask you a question or tell a story, right? That's what you want. You want to say something that has people ask you a question or tell a story, because then you're in a conversation, then you're actually working on it. And the referral statement is the answer to how can I help you? Who are you looking for? Like how can I help you grow your business? And so many people like, let's see, like, what do I need? I'm like, this is coming. Like, so really what I do is help people prepare for these questions. And again, there are about 6 questions. I have a program called the Intro Kit program that I run every October, where we work through, we take a 30-second pitch, then we break it up into its little parts so that you're ready to answer any question that somebody's going to ask you through networking.
Okay. So I guess I want to help us understand, I guess we all hear about pitch slapping. We all hear about, how are you avoiding all of that, but still getting that opportunity, the opportunity to tell your story around what you do? How do you progress?
Thank you, Shanna. That is a great question, and one that I work a lot with people on. And I call it actually permission pitching, where if you have your 30-second pitch and you're asked to stand up and introduce yourself to the room full of people, then you have permission to share all that information. But when you're talking to someone one-to-one, or you meet someone in the grocery store line or in a little league field or something, what people want to do is blurt. Like, it's the biggest mistake people make is they're asked what they do and they start blurting out their 30-second pitch. But nobody cares. Like the title of this thing, nobody cares. Like, they do not care. They ask that question to just to break the ice, that sort of thing. So if you answer that question, oh, what is it that you do? Well, I help consultants get clear about their elevator pitch. And most of the time, people won't engage them, right? Because you're not going to engage with everyone. Like, part of what you're looking for, the people that you want to engage with. But sometimes you'll get someone who's like, oh, consultants, elevator pitches. Like, what's that about? And then you can build the conversation from there. Actually, I started too far into it. Usually people ask, how's it going? Or what do you do? How's it going? Or what's up? Or how's it going? Something like that. And to that you say, awesome. I did a great TV show where we talked about the elevator pitch. And people are like, what do you do? Oh, I'm an elevator pitch coach. I help consultants. And then they're like, oh, what does that look like? And then you can tell your client's success story. Then you can actually dig. Then they've given you permission to talk more about what you do. But I say to people, if you're at a networking event with like 40 people and you get 3 to 5 chances to share that additional information, that's a pretty good networking event, right? I mean, most people, you're not going to connect with most people, and that's part of what I help people understand as well. You're looking for the thing. I say the elevator pitch should rule out as many conversations as it gets you into, right? You want your elevator pitch to scare the wrong people off. Like, you don't want to talk to people who aren't interested in the work that you're doing. And so you wouldn't want to. Pitch slapping is when you go up to everyone at the thing and say, I'm an elevator pitch coach. Can I help you? I'm an elevator pitch coach. The non-pitch slapping is, I help people with their elevator pitch. And if they, if they want to learn more, then they can learn more. But Shanna, that's really the key for me. I call it the conversational blueprint. It's like, how do you take, and that's part of the intro kit. It's how do you take what you do and turn it into a natural conversation that builds. And the key is that you just have to let it build naturally, right? I mean, you're not trying to force it. It's not like you're like, okay, we can do this and this and this. No. you have the conversation, you listen to what they're saying. You may need to ask them what they do. You may talk about the weather or the commute or whatever it is, but over time you can get into the conversation. You get more comfortable. My kids tease me all the time because, we'll be at a party, they're with their friends and I'm hanging out with the adults or whatever. And every time they come over, I'm talking about my work. Like, Dad, you're always bragging. Why are you always bragging? And I'm like, no, it's not bragging. It's just that I'm passionate about what I do. And when people hear me talk about it, they want to learn more. And so I mean, I'm never forcing it on people, but it seems like every time they come over to me, I'm talking about my business. It's pretty funny, pretty funny outside perspective.
It's true though. My son's like, here she goes. Her voice even changes, right? I get all fired up.
You're going to put on that business persona.
But it's not really.
You have that passion.
Yeah, that's the thing is I just don't look at it as a persona, because I've seen that side of Natalie, just when she gets super excited, and it's just she and I. It's not like she has to put on any type of airs, but it's the same thing for many of us who have these visions and are crazy enough to follow them, right? We do get excited, and you can tell and hear it in what we say. And I love that you're helping refine what we're saying, right?
And I don't think you should have a persona. Like a lot of people have a persona. That's what a lot of people think, that they have to like put on their business persona and go talk to people as a business person. And that's a lot of what I help people with, is just being authentic. Just talk about who you are and what you do, and talk about the stuff that you enjoy doing. And it will again, you can say that you're excited and passionate as much as you want, but sharing something excitedly and passionately tells people a lot more.
Yes. Right. It's so true. I had this agent that I had trained, and she just wasn't closing business for a little while. I said, let me go back out in the field with you and watch you. Let me see what the challenge is, right? And she was so boring, right? And we're already talking financial planning on top of it, right? So it's like, right? Like, no part of her was fired up. We leave, and I was like, I wouldn't want to buy anything from you either. Like, there was no part of me I was fired up about it at all. Like, you're changing their legacy. Their kids are going to college. They're going to retire. Like, be fired up about what you did for them, right? So I said, this is what you do from now on. I gave her a code. I said, you smack that table at the end of your presentation. Bam, be fired up. And so that was your close from then on. She came to the table and be all fired up. And sure, she got a 90-something% close rate. I was like, if you can't get fired up,
that's awesome.
Doing for people, you're not going to.
Right.
Hey,
right. You got to get excited. Yes.
Way,
you can't go to fail. The person's asleep. It really won't. That does not work.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's true though.
Okay.
That pitch matters. So I do want to something I wanted to that we had talked in pregame. Oh, do we need to take a break, Shanna? Because I had thought of something I had wanted to bring up. Okay. Because I know that we had talked in the pregame about, I found this very intriguing because I do think this is important. I did grow an organization for 15 years of my career. And you talked about when you're doing the corporate coaching. And I loved this. I think this is so important. When you're talking about doing the corporate coaching and getting everyone singing from the same sheet of music. Can we talk a little bit about that and the psychology behind that? Because I think that's a big one.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. So my program is called Unified Voices, and it's about a 4 to 6 week program where I work with organizations. And it's easiest to think about it for nonprofits, right? When you have a nonprofit, they have 3 people they're working with. They have their volunteers, they have their donors, and they have the people that they're trying to help. And so how do you create a message that like covers all of that? Like, where does that come from? And so that to me is really the 2-minute pitch. You asked about how long the pitch should be, and the Unified Voices comes out. You come out with a 2-minute corporate pitch, which helps people understand what the group is about. And I've done this a couple of times with organizations, and they'll be talking about their process or their method. And I've known them for a while, and finally I get them into this Zoom thing where we're working on the pitch. And I say, okay, I said, what is your method? Like, what is it that you're doing? And when I asked them that question, they pull up slides and they start excitedly talking about how the thing actually works. And I had never heard that before. Like, well, it's on the website. I'm like, I know, but none of you are saying that. Like, none of you are saying that this is, that this is the way that, people take pictures and then they get to talk about the picture in a way that gets them connected together. And like, it was such a nice process of things. And it made it so clear what they were doing. right? And so we came up with the words that now they can all talk about their method in the same way so that it makes sense. And then the key too is that I do not think that everyone should then use that same pitch, right? The corporate pitch helps drive messaging. It helps drive your email messaging. It helps drive your website copy. It helps drive a lot. Like once you're clear on all of this stuff, then that kind of helps with the corporate messaging. But you still want each individual person to have their own pitch, and Unified Voices includes that. It includes a 30-second pitch plus the short pitch plus the referral statement for each person. And that's because you want it to be the passion, right? We talked about that earlier. Like you want people shouldn't read the script of the corporate, as a corporation, people need to talk about the clients that they've helped. Like, what you were talking about, you're banging on the table, like, I'm going to send your kids to college. And, like you want to be excited about all that stuff. And so once you kind of have the messaging for the overall, once everyone's, saying the same thing, once no matter who you talk to, you understand what the organization does, then people can dive into what they're passionate about in the organization, which won't always be the same thing. But again, it echoes what the overall messaging is.
So a lot of business owners, I guess, when you think about the elevator pitch, and I know that you go beyond that. I want to pull it back and think about just those new and aspiring business owners that are coming into this. How many different ways can I use this pitch that you help me to perfect, right? I'm a big fan of reusing, repurposing, redoing everything you possibly can. And we talked about marketing, and this type of pitch goes for messaging. This goes for this. What can I do with a perfect pitch, and it's perfect, perfect.
Right. Yeah. No. Well, and you want the perfect pitch. I mean, the perfect pitch is the one that gets you the right conversations. Like that's what it is. Everyone's looking for that. And the key thing is that once you find that, you never go away from that. Right. Once you find, I'm the elevator pitch coach. I've been using that for almost 20 years. And once you find the pitch that works, you'll use. People are like, oh, I change my pitch every time. Like that's because your pitch isn't working. Right. If you were getting the conversations that you wanted, you wouldn't be changing your pitch. And so back to your question, when I work with people, the trouble people have with networking, the trouble people have with describing their business actually goes back to second grade, right? We start being taught in second grade something that makes it really difficult to make a good elevator pitch. And the thing we're taught is, my kids came home, my kids are older now, but they came home from second grade and they had this worksheet, and there was a picture of a lion and a picture of a tiger and a picture of a house cat. And they had written in their second grade scroll, feline underneath it. And as I get these three things, it's a feline. And people come to me all the time and say, Andy, I do these three things. I need words that describe all three things. And that's the wrong approach, right? You're not looking to generalize. Like I say to people, if you're a writer, you can't say that the warm-blooded mammal hopped across the meadow, right? It's a bunny. It has to be a bunny. Like the bunny hopped across the meadow. You want to be specific. Like the specifics help people connect with you. And so the first thing I do with people, and it's especially true for consultants, but in any business, like we do so many things, right? The problem people have is I've got so many things I want to tell people about. I'm excited about all these things. And what do I tell them about? And what I say to people is, if you've got three things, you pick one. You just pick one to start with, right? And talk about that one. And the reason for that is that if you give people three things, they don't know how to help you, right? I work with this person, and this person, and this person. If you work with one person, then over time, right? The way this works is you say, no, I work with consultants. And so people are like, oh, Andy, consultants. Okay, yeah, consultants. And they see me again in a couple of weeks. I'm like, I work with consultants. They're like, oh yeah, he's the elevator consultant. He's that guy. And then the third time they're like, wait a second, I met someone who needed, and the fourth time is when you actually get the introduction. But if you're changing it every time, you don't give people that chance to catch up with you. And so again, I keep going back to the question you asked. So the thing I help people with is being specific that way. The way I spend my day is unlearning this second grade approach of trying to generalize everything. And, I like to say, if people are like, oh, I'm no good at storytelling. I'm like, okay, but tell me about your last vacation. And most people will not say something like, well, yeah, no, it was a pretty good vacation. Each morning we had breakfast, and Then we'd do an activity, and then, we'd have lunch, and then we'd do the afternoon activity, and then, some dinner. And yeah, they were pretty good days, right? How different is that from, my kid was so excited to go to Disney World, she forgot to pack any underwear. So we had to run around the first morning to find a Target that we could buy some underwear for her so we could actually go to Disney, right? I mean, it's a very different kind of story. And the specifics help people, oh yeah, we want to go to Disney World, or we've been to Disney World, or, oh, have you tried that? Have you been to Universal, right? I mean, Disney, now you can get into the conversation. People throw themselves into the specifics. Where it's like, oh yeah, we had lunch every day. Lunch was, good. Where does that go? Like, there's nothing to hang on to. So I like to talk about the elevator pitch having triggers, right? You're saying things that people can remember and think about, and over time they think of you because you've put these triggers in their head. But everyone's got this sense they give their elevator pitch and they're done. Like, well, everyone's heard my elevator pitch. I'm like, okay, how many elevator pitches do you remember from the last networking event you went to? How many do you remember? Like, none. You don't remember any pitches.
Yeah.
So people think that they
and part of them aren't even listening to you anyway. They've already zoned out as you're talking.
Right. Yeah. Well, they're worried about what they're going to pick up for dinner, or worried about the client they have to talk to. Right. They're not. Yeah. I say that with the 30-second pitch. Like, the first step of the 30-second pitch is to grab people's attention, get their attention. And people are like, well, but they're already listening to me. I'm like, no, they are not. You do not want to assume that at all. You need to grab their attention every time you start speaking. Yeah.
That's why I bang on the table before and after.
And after, right?
That's right, Shanna. You let them know you mean business.
Can't do that too much. Like, that banging on the table, it really grabs attention.
Hey, if I'm comfortable with them real good, they'll even get a little dance.
Exactly. And
that is something to be fired up about. Hey, I'm just saying.
Well, this is part of it too. It's part of it. It's like one of the very first elevator pitch clients I worked with. She was actually wanted help with video, and this was long before the iPhones. I actually had a camera and a tripod, and I set it up. And it was funny because she was one of the bubbliest people you'd ever meet. And she got in front of the camera and she talked like this. Like, where'd you go? Like, what happened? But that's a lot of what, and people get nervous about this because they're not sure what they're going to say. And I have a technique I call no memorization required, because you shouldn't have to memorize your 30-second pitch. What you're talking about should be natural enough that it just flows out. I mean, you have to practice it, and it's good to know what you want to say and work on it ahead of time. But the techniques I teach aren't, you don't have to sit and memorize the words, because most of us aren't actors. Like, most of us can't read a script making it sound engaging. So you just need to tell a story. You need to tell, think about the most engaging story and tell that story. And that's how people remember you. That's how you engage people.
I like that. That is
a
great tip.
I'll never forget the underwear story.
Right.
I might not even remember your name 20 years from now, Andy, but I'll remember that story.
And then hopefully I'll tell a business story that'll supplant that. But sure, the underwear story, that's great.
Yeah, definitely.
That's the value of telling stories, right? I mean, that's what makes it non-boring. That's what grabs people. And if you tell stories about your clients, I tell stories about my kids, but you can tell stories about your clients. And it's the same thing. People remember that. Oh yeah, you were the one who, the guy was down in the ditch and you figured out how to get him out. Like, yeah, I mean, that's memorable, right? It can be memorable. So, yes. Thank you for pointing that
out. Okay, so we're gonna take a quick peek. We'll reset right after this, but we'll go into Just Good Business. There is an organization, because like I said, Natalie, I literally went on, down this whole rabbit hole, and it landed me in so many different places. But during that journey, I thought of you, and I was like, we need free stuff. What companies are giving away free stuff? And I was like, I really couldn't get out of my head how you are always telling people it's just a matter of looking. Well, what I found when I was looking for a free laptop was an organization that they do actually give away free laptops. I did not apply for one because I was just like, okay, this is more for people who are in more of, I guess, a desperate need is who they're trying to serve first. But the company that's behind them, so that company was called Computers with Causes. And that led me to With Causes. And that led me to clicking on the application, which is where I found the Giving Center. So I'm going to share, hopefully, as soon as I figure out how to work this thing again. I'll pull them up. Love for you guys to go and check them out. They have this heart to serve different people. So there's collectibles with causes, there's just with causes, but they're trying to bridge the gap. And I love their tagline here: Giving Center Charity is dedicated to providing assistance where there is none. And so that really stood out to me, because that's something that's been on my heart a lot lately, is really looking and saying, okay, people have needs, and there are so many of us who can meet them. And it doesn't have to be this great big thing. There's, even the tiniest thing. I've got a laptop. Let me donate it to this organization, because they're going to refurbish it and get it out to someone who needs it. Those families who are trying to bridge that educational gap, who are trying to better themselves and just cannot afford this type of technology, or people donating the collectibles and houses, and they're turning this around and using those funds to help people in need. So I really loved what they were about. They've got so many different organizations that are a part of this. So it seems like they're kind of the back end for the application process, and will help to vet, I guess, some of these stories. But you can go on either side of it. If you need help, you can go there. If you want to help, you can go there. So check out the Giving Center and see if it tugs on your heartstrings a little bit, if there's something that you want to support in that. But I love that they were purpose beyond profit. And so that's why we featured them for Just Good Business. Okay, now I'll stop sharing.
All right. That's awesome.
Well, that sounds great. Yeah. What a wonderful, wonderful organization. And what a great pitch. Well, I love it when the words make sense. Like that. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
None. Like that's cool.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to reset for about 20 seconds. We'll be right back with Andy Wenig. And we're back.
All right. Yes, we are back. Talking about people don't really care about what you do. We have Andrew Wenig with us. He is the founder of Improv Andy, and we are talking elevator pitches tonight. So
Andy,
awesome. Andy, thank you again.
I lost you for a minute, Natalie. Sorry.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
I want to talk about the AI tool that you've got, because that fascinated me before I ever met you. But one of the things that stood out is I was really thinking about the topic of the show, because I want to stay true to that, is Simon Sinek is one of my absolute favorite people to listen to. He's got such a practical way of bringing wisdom to the world. And this was, almost verbatim, the title of this episode is something that he said. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And that's something that really stood out to me. And he talked about the golden circle of, there's why in the center, there's how, right outside of that, and then there's what. And typically businesses and business owners going into this will start on that outer side, the what, because it's the easiest, right? It's the easiest for them to understand and communicate is, I do this, I do that, I do, I have 37 different practice areas, but I really should be focusing on why I serve in these areas, and then coming out and then speaking about how I do it, and then what. Is that, I guess, is it oversimplifying it to say that, that's part of what they'll learn from going through the exercises with you, or some, is it formulaic like that, I guess?
There's a formula behind it. I had one client say that he appreciated my approach and the formula, but also my willingness to change the formula to meet his needs, and that's kind of how I think about it. Like I have a lot of templates, and the tool you mentioned, it's a template. I mean, it's a template for creating an elevator pitch, and it gets you into the right mode. But I don't ever suggest people just read exactly what it says, because you want to make it yours, and that thing. And so in terms of the what, the how, and the why, if you look at the big corporations, they do aspirational stuff. Like they do the why, like that's how they market. But they have billions of dollars of marketing, and the people that I work with tend to be smaller than that. And when you're smaller, like you can talk aspirationally, you can talk about your why, and part. I mean, when I start with people, it starts with the client success story. And the way I motivate this is I was at the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce. That's where I learned how to network. And we were in a networking meeting one day, sitting around the conference room table. And our facilitator, Tom, said, okay, so today, he said, instead of your 30-second elevator pitch, let's share a client success story. Just go around the room and share a client success story. And so we did. And I'm here to tell you, I learned more about the people sitting around the table that day than I had in the previous 3 years of twice a month listening to their traditional 30-second elevator pitch, right? Listening to how they leverage the synergies across the silos in their organization, right? I mean, all of a sudden hearing about, hearing the guy there became my business lawyer because he was like, I wish you'd come to me sooner. He had a story, like he's a litigator and he doesn't mind litigating, but he'd rather protect you from the litigation. And he said, I wish she'd come to me sooner. And years later, I was in a business situation. I owned a franchise business for a while, and I was in a situation. I was like, I got to call him. And I called him for free advice tons of times, but I called him with this one. He's like, I'll send you a retainer agreement. And I was like, oh, now I actually need a lawyer. But he did it. He tightened it up for me and protected the business. Like, it was great. And so that's really where my elevator pitch approach started. It's with sharing the client success story. Like, if you can talk, you want more people like your best clients. And if you can talk about a best client with specifics, like who they are, what kind of industry they're in, why they came to you, how you help them, that really gives people that's what makes us unique, right? As someone, right. One of you said earlier, like we're all business coaches, right? I mean, people come to me and they're like, I got it, Andy. I know what I do. I help people increase their revenue. I'm like, yeah, so do I. So does Shannon. So does Nat. Like, we all do that. That's what we're doing. Like that's just business. And so I think it's important when you're starting out to be a little bit more focused on the what, because that's where people are coming from. But if you share the what in the context of the great people that you're helping, or the enjoyment that you have from, helping someone get the right life insurance policy, or helping someone get the taxes done in a way that they didn't realize could be done, that's how people really connect with you. And so I think it combines all of the stuff that you're talking about when you talk about the client success. And I say to people, if there's one thing you get out of today's show, next time you're asked to give a 30-second elevator pitch, just say, I'd like to share a recent client success. I was working with just start that way. And you'll find that you get people like, oh, I didn't know you did that. Or, wow, that's cool. Or, you'll get a lot more conversations out of that. And the work that I do is to refine that, to make it a tighter, to make the story tighter. But if you just share that story, that really helps people understand your passion. I get, you say to people, what do you do? And they're like, okay, so I work with people. It's like, okay, you're trying to memorize this. Like, don't do that, right? Whereas if you say to someone, hey, can you talk about it? Tell me about a recent client success. Who have you helped recently? They light up. They're like, oh yeah, let me tell you about Jen. I was working with Jen and she needed this. And so that's really where the passion comes through. And that's where your why comes through, right? I mean, that's really a way of saying your why in a way that people can understand. Right. I like, I like working with life insurance people because they call me on the worst day of their life, and I can make that better. And I think Natalie, you could also, I wish you'd called me sooner. Right. I wish, I was talking to someone, but I wish you'd contacted me sooner, because if you have it in place, then you don't have to make this panic call and it's not too late. I think there's a value in telling people when to reach out to you, or giving people a trigger for when to think about you. I would think people will come to you too when they've had a baby, which might be the nice side, the more pleasant, joyful side of what you're doing. But if you can give people like a reason to come to you.
Yes.
People come to me when they have a pitch competition coming up. People come to me when they're getting ready to start networking again. Like there are triggers that bring people to me, and I think it's important to understand those as well. But yes, I love Simon Sinek's approach, and again the why. The elevator pitch to me is a little more practical, because you're really looking to get people to introduce you. And if you're all aspirational about it, then again, it's hard to. I think that comes through in your one-to-ones when you meet people, for coffee meetings or whatever. That's when you can talk more about. I like to say, my belief is that every opportunity I've ever had starts as a conversation. Like if you think back, like anything, this tonight, we were talking about, Rolf introduced us, and he introduced us because I say I'm on podcasts, and he's like, oh, well, I know someone who does a TV show. Did you do that? I'm like, yeah, of course. Like, again, you can be specific, and it starts the conversations. And so that conversation starts, and here we are. So the opportunity all starts as a conversation. And so let's get better at starting those conversations, right? The challenge people have is they focus on their 30-second pitch, and then they get frustrated because these conversations don't start. Like, it's awkward. No matter what someone asks you, it's awkward to launch into some rehearsed speech. And so I help people with having the word, like putting the words together in a way that builds the conversation up in a natural way. For the people who are interested, it's not like you're trying to get everyone to talk to you. You're trying to get the right people to talk to you and to remember you. So when they meet somebody who needs you, they just refer you over.
Yeah. Andy, do you ever have, that was going to be my question, do you have anybody who ever says, I just can't find the right people, or the right people aren't around me?
Oh, all the time. Yeah, that's a lot of, that's the big question, right? That's the thing people are struggling with. Like, I can't meet the right people. And when people are in a networking group, I didn't know this for years. Like I attended every single networking event, right? I attended every single networking group. I was part of a networking group. I was there every other week, there in the room, and I wasn't getting anything out of it. And I did not realize that the work of networking, the actual work of networking, happens between those meetings. You have to sit down with people for one-to-ones. You have to get to know people individually. That's when, everyone's like, yeah, it took me 8 years to figure that out. Like, I did not understand that. and when you start doing that, that's where those things start. And you're not going to have you're not going to have a one-to-one with everyone. Like, I say that my technique is that if you're at a networking event, you try to set up 3 one-to-ones, because one of the people won't ever schedule with you. And I don't know why they're at a networking event if they won't schedule the one-to-one. But if they won't schedule the one-to-one, then you can't ever refer them, right? That's all the information you need, right? If you reach out to them and they don't get back to you, they're not a good networking contact. And so I really like helping people with that sort of thought about it, that you're not with sales, right? I mean, if everyone said yes, your day would be, you walk down the street, you meet 5 people, you sign them all up, and then you're done, right? It wouldn't be any work to it, right?
That's a perfect day, Andy.
Perfect day, right? Talk to 5 people, I'm done by 8:15, and met my sales quota.
Yeah.
I wish that's the way it worked, right? But the same is true in networking, right? You're not going to connect with everyone. I like to tell the story. I've been married now for 15 years, but back when I was dating, I went speed dating once, and there was 7-minute dates. And I met this woman, and she seemed nice. We had a good conversation, and we matched, and so we got to go out again. And I will say that the only thing that the 7-minute conversation didn't rule out was someone with who I had 8 minutes of conversation. I mean, by the time we got to the restaurant, we had nothing left to talk about. It was the most awkward dinner ever. And that's really, when I think about networking, it's the same thing, right? I mean, if it's awkward, I say, if it's awkward at the event, like, the one-to-one's not going to be easier. Like, you're looking for people at the event that you like talking to, and you have some synergy with, you connect, and then you can continue that conversation. But like, chasing people who, you didn't connect with, or who are awkward, or it doesn't. And again, it's not that they're awkward. It's just that the two of you didn't connect. You're looking for the people who you connect with. And then you can, and again, people talk about building trust, like trust and all that stuff. And if you're going to build trust, there's nothing you can say in 30 seconds or 45 minutes, or there's nothing you can say that builds that trust. Right? It happens over time. So you have multiple one-to-ones with people over time. That's where the really good opportunities come from. I had one guy I knew off and on. We had 12 one-to-ones over the course of several years. And we finally team talked together. Like, we signed up a job together and did stuff. But it takes that long sometimes to build that with people. And people forget that they're building relationships, right? You're looking, people are in the networking event, and they're trying to get people to sign up for their thing. I'm like, you want to sell through the room, right? You want people in the room to understand who you are and what you're about. And you give them the triggers. So when someone says, oh yeah, I've been thinking about life insurance, you talk to them. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for that trigger to be in people's head. And that's what the
Andy, Shannon?
It's to train people to be listening for the right thing.
No.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I heard him. We might have lost you for a minute. Yeah, as you were talking about the networking, like events, and we've talked about this on the show a few times, how people are doing networking wrong. I mean, I see a shift, right? We are starting to become more focused on how we can serve, or who can I introduce you to, or more of that collaborative type feel. they want to just sell you at this thing. And I'll admit, when I first started, when I was in my first sales position and, going to networking events, it was just like, how many business cards can I hand out? That's what I did. It was, the conversations were really just, let me ask you how you're doing so I can tell you how I'm doing. And without really thinking about it. And we all have someone like that in our lives, and we all, it's draining, right?
Yep.
Because it's just like, okay, you really just wanted that door open just enough so that you could just, barge your way through there and start bombarding me with everything, And unfortunately, I was doing the same thing. And then there was one networking event where it all just kind of turned around for me, where I just sat back and I wasn't as concerned about how many business cards I was going to hand out. I really wanted to see who was in the room, help me understand who was in there. And then I started looking around and just feeling like, if we all, and there was an exercise they did that helped me with this, but if we all look at how can we connect these people who we all have something in common to other people that we know, that it's not about me and you necessarily, but let me find out from you something to see who I can introduce you to in my world. You do start building relationships that way. And once I started that shift, I would go into networking events, and some of the people I've never done business with, but I'm still friends with, right? We just hit it off that well because neither of us were trying to sell the other one. It was just like,
you sell to prospects, you network with non-prospects.
Yeah.
Right. Like you're not trying to sell to the people.
Right.
Like, and I say if you have a client, yes, sell to the client. Like if someone comes up to you with the need and the budget for what you have, set up a sales meeting and go back to networking with other people. But you say it, and you crossed over from, I say people confuse networking with selling all the time. People are like,
yes,
what are you talking about? But if you're studying attendance lists or collecting business cards or doing any of those things, you're prospecting, right? And when you're prospecting a networking event, it's icky because that's not what people are there to do. People are there to get to know you and to understand you and learn more about you. And so I'm glad to hear that whatever exercise they did that. And that's a lot of the work that I do with people, is helping them understand that you don't have to put on a persona, and it's not about going in and numbers. It's not a numbers game and all that. I mean, that there are numbers involved, but it's not about, again, I'm not pushing my coaching programs every time I talk to people, right? I'm learning about them and about their work and their business. And sometimes, sometimes I can help them and sometimes I can't. And it's fine. And sometimes, but again, I have weeks now where I send out more introductions than I receive. And those are good weeks. That's a good week. Like that, I like having the network. Like part of what you're doing is setting up that network. So if you're in front of someone who you can't sell to, who doesn't need your stuff, it's not the right time or it's not the right thing, but they have some other thing going on. I was talking to someone recently and she wants someone to write a blog for her. I know plenty of copywriters. Like I was like, oh, I'll introduce you. Like, really? She's like, what do I owe you for that? I'm like, I don't owe you anything. Like they'll be delighted to hear from me that that's what I do. Like I'm happy to send them over. And but that's the thing, I can helping her. That's huge for her, right? And for the copywriter I sent her to, that's huge, right? Oh my goodness, thank you for thinking of me, right? That's it's the phone call that always gets returned. Hey, I've got an opportunity for you. I mean, that's why you build your network. That's why you have a lot of people. That's why you build trust with people, because then you can introduce them to each other, and that it really creates these great things. So Jana, thanks for that story, because it's a key piece, and it's something a lot of people don't like. You're not alone. Like I did the same thing. I was there to try to sell and it doesn't work. Like it's very frustrating. And once you turn it around and realize that you're trying to connect with people and learn more about people and understand people, and all the magic happens at the one-to-ones, not necessarily the first one, but when you're talking to someone one-to-one, that's when they can learn more about you and learn more about what you're looking for. And you can make those connections. I mean, the connections don't always come to you when you're listening to a pitch. I mean, so.
Yeah. And those relationships are so priceless.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They're priceless, that you can trust them with your client. That they're going to take care of them. It's everything to have those type of connections in your business. I mean, I feel like every time I give a referral to someone, they just make me look even better, right?
But they're the right people, right? I mean, you're not just doing that randomly. Like I actually don't trust. You go to some networking events, people are like, I need to interview this person, and you try to get the person on the phone. And it's not that they haven't heard of me. is that they haven't ever heard of the person who introduced me to them. And I'm like, that's a weird referral, right? How are you? You want to like understand, and that's what I say. Like, you have multiple one-to-ones with people because they'll come to the first one-to-one, but they may not come to the second one. They may not be able to set up the second one-to-one, and now that that's not. It's for whatever reason right now that's not going to be a good referral source for you. But I like to say too, I mean, I do less networking now because the people that I know send me opportunities, right? I mean, I don't need to be beating the bushes as much because people know me and understand me, and that generates some, I got an email last week for somebody who's, I knew years ago. He published my book, actually. He's my book publisher, but he works for the Chamber of Commerce and wants to bring in a speaker. And so he reached out like, hey, I know you speak. I'm like, yeah, that's great. So good to hear from him. And again, I mean, that those are the kinds of things that you just build up over time. And that to me, introverts especially, like, oh, I hate small talk. Like, why do I have to do small talk? And I'm like, no, my conversation blueprint gets you through the small talk to the business conversations. And once you're in the business conversations, you're moving towards not having to network anymore because you get to know people and they understand you and they trust you and they'll send you opportunities. Like that's what you're looking for.
And I would question,
exactly. That's exactly
why does it have to be small talk? I met up with someone yesterday and we talked the meeting actually ran over. So thankfully, it was at the end of the day and we had the buffer on the other side. And it wasn't until the last probably 5 to 7 minutes that we were on the call that it was like, I don't even remember why we set this up, right? We got really into whatever it was, the conversation, and we discovered how much we had in common. And we were looking on both sides of, there's an organization that she was speaking into that is full of, or it was supporting people who have lost spouses, right? So widows and widowers. And so she had the opportunity to speak in front of them, and it gave her this idea for this amazing program that she's creating. And we just, because that's something that I've gone through, I was able to relate. And so we started talking about my experience. And then on her side, it was, speaking from the experience of divorce and just kind of comparing and contrasting, the loss in that way. And it just ran with it. So there was no real small talk.
Well, there was. I don't know what you said initially to get into the conversation, but you connected with something, and then you turned it into something real, and that's the skill, right? The skill is that the small talk gets you. I was having actually an interesting conversation with someone about a commute. This was back before COVID, but we were talking about commute. And again, I mean, it's like talking about the weather. Like, who cares? But that's how you get to know people. Like, that's how you find commonalities. Like, we lived in similar towns, and a guy came over to us very officiously and looked at us both, and he was like, okay, what do you do? And the whole thing fell apart. Like, I wanted to keep talking to this guy, but the moment was gone because this guy came over and like tried to shoehorn something into it. And so I think, Shannon, like, there was small talk. That's what got you into the conversation. And then once you're in the conversation, you forget the small talk because you don't need it anymore. But that's what I help people with, is that you've got some words that you can say that kind of get you through the small talk into the, then you can latch on to what people do that you can talk to them about. And that's the holy grail. I mean, that's what you're looking for. I love to hear that you had that kind of conversation with someone that you're working together and everything made sense.
Happen fast.
Yeah, it can. It doesn't have to, but it can. And that's the thing. I mean, you've forgotten what the small talk piece of that was.
Yeah, I really did.
Yeah, you did. But it was there. And again, you've actually moved through it. And again, that's what I help people with, that you can turn small talk into actual deep talk. And that's one of the skills. And again, I'm glad that you don't even notice the small talk anymore because you don't, again, you quickly, oh, you do that. And you ask questions, and then all of a sudden you're into a great conversation. And I love the one-to-ones where you're like, oh, why
do you host a talk show, Shannon? Huh? You do host a show. I was expecting people to have some skills.
Natalie, you know me. What I'm hearing is the elevator pitch guy said I had mad skills. I just want, that's what I took. That's my takeaway for tonight.
Yeah, I stand by that.
Agreed.
Mad skills.
Mad skills. That's right.
Oh my goodness.
Awesome.
All right.
Awesome. Well, Andy, we thank you so much for joining us tonight. You've given so much great, just tips and information, great stories, and it's been a lot of fun with you. Do you have anything that you want to leave our audience with before we let you go?
Well, so, I have a lot of tips and stuff out on my website, and I run 2 group coaching programs each year. One's called the Intro Kit, where we work on what we just talked about, the conversational blueprint, how you turn whatever question people ask into a conversation. And then I have another program called the Focus Consultant, which helps people focus their business and their practice on things that happen. But I guess one thing I would leave people with is that, everything starts as a conversation. Just go out there and start the conversations, get better at starting conversations like that. That's what it's all about. And I want to thank you. This was crazy fun. Like I really, really had a good time talking to you, and
Awesome.
appreciate the time.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, everybody go and check out Andrew's website. He had a lot of great stuff on there, downloads, tips, tricks. I mean, there was a lot of information. So if you're one of those people that's, not doing so great in your networking or want to improve your pitch or just want to, learn more about Andy and what he does, go and check that out. It will be worth your time. He has a lot of good stuff over there. I was like, ooh, when I got there. So
he really does. And I'm sorry that I somehow lost sight of the tool that he's got on there. So go to his website. It is really neat that you can get an elevator pitch emailed to you. So if you're struggling with that, this is just a tool, like he was saying, that he's got available. Free resources, guys. We're always looking for things like that. I'm going to show you a couple of grants, and we've talked about them before. But if we're looking for truly free resources, there are so many business owners and like coaches like Andy and, organizations, I Do Systems, BEF, that have resources that are available for you. Just go and look for them. So improvandy.com, check out his elevator pitch tool. Okay, so the grant for tonight, let me add this. So I wanted to focus on Amber grants again, because this month is sustainability. So the grant for the month, sustainability, $15. There is an application fee, but it's good for basically 3 months, and any that you would apply for, you don't have to go and reapply. As a matter of fact, they won't let you reapply within that period of time. So if you have a company, a sustainable business, you're focused on sustainability rather, then this week or this month is the month that you want to go ahead and look into these grants. They've got all of the qualifications there. The other one that I wanted to mention is the monthly startup grant. So female entrepreneurs, if you have a woman-owned business and it's a startup, you might be selected for a $10,000 startup grant. And so this is something they give away on a monthly basis, in addition to whatever their themed grant is for the month. So keep that in mind. If you go to ambergrantsforwomen.com, you can go ahead and apply. It is very quick and easy, but you're speaking from the heart. And so this is where maybe you want to get with Andy. Maybe this is where you want to spend that time. He's got that power hour where he can help you refine your messaging, because this is so competitive. We've talked about that with grants before, how competitive it is. And so it's just like, hey, work with someone and let them help you kind of perfect that pitch, tell your story in a way that's so compelling that you can get some of this free money that's out there, or $15 money. So that's that.
Right. That you'd spend going through a drive-through anyway. So it's worth it to take a shot. Right? It's worth it to take a shot. So I mean, tonight's show's been awesome. We've given you a lot of resources to help you better your business. We've had Andy here who can help you with the language of your business, the pitching of your business, the wording of your business, how to grow your business. Shanna, as a business coach, can do the same. We have grant money for you. So if there's a will, there is a way. It's really just about going out and doing it. So that's my money minute, Shanna. Take action, right? You got to take action, guys. There's this book, John Maxwell. It's Failing Forward. And, sometimes we're so afraid of not doing things perfectly that we don't take action. It's going to be a little messy, guys, right? That's how we get better. No matter how much front work we do, how much research we do, you have to get in and start taking action to really learn the game right. So yes, fail forward, go for it. It'll happen faster than you think. I think anyways. But so many wonderful things come from taking action. So
Agreed.
Agreed. All right, you guys. Thank you, everyone who joined us tonight. Anything else, Shanna, before we sign off?
Nope. Next week we're gonna have Carlton Hoskins. He was a business owner last week. We know him, we love him. He is going to be on, if I'm not mistaken, next week on the 18th, talking about turning your business idea into a reality. When we looked at their product last week, all of the 88 documents, we wanted to take the opportunity to look at this from a not product-based standpoint, but from a real practical standpoint. As a business owner, I have an idea. Help me understand how to turn this into a reality. Which documents do I need? What do I have to do? Who should I be talking to? Who do I involve? That whole conversation is what we're going to be looking into next week.
Yes, that's going to be some good stuff. So make sure you join us next week. I'm really looking forward to that. Thank you, everyone who joined us tonight. Thank you, Andy, for being here. Thank you, Shanna, for being the best partner in crime ever. Thank you to those of us who are watching on the replay. Go out and do something this week that will help you better your business. We will see you soon. Have a great week, everyone.
Our goal is simple: to help you achieve the dream and vision you first had when you thought about starting a business. We're here to make growing your business less complicated. There are building blocks to build a sustainable business. We promise to seek them out and address them all. The Better Your Business Show starts now.